Hey,
Hmm.
what's up?
How you doing, man?
I'm good. I guess this is a better way to do it. I'm trying to see. I'm in my car. I didn't feel like being in the house. I need to buy one of those stands though too for my phone. Even though I could have used my laptop, but I feel like it's crappy. But what's up?
Ah, not too much, man. How you doing?
Good. I'm good. Let
That's
me see. I
good.
wonder if I can. I wonder if I can put my if I put my earbuds in, if I could still like hear you and stuff. Um.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about, we wanted to talk about protests. Bring up. Can
Sorry,
you
can you
hear
say
me?
that?
Okay?
No, 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 no. That last part it cut out. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said, and any other topics you want to bring up?
Oh, okay, okay. All right, all
Yeah,
right.
but we're gonna talk about protests, right?
Yeah, sure, we could do that.
Yeah. Okay, so, do you think protesting works and marching and stuff?
To an extent. I mean, in the past, it's helped, right? I mean, the thing about protests and large gatherings is it shows people, there's at least some cohesiveness, right? Like you're not just, it's not just a couple of voices. You can physically see group of people and they're obviously upset about something. But yeah, other than that, I don't think it really does much because how many protests have we had in the past? How many gatherings? How many million man
Yeah,
march? All that stuff. Nothing's really changed, really.
yeah. So I agree with you on that part. As far as showing unity and showing and other people at home seeing that and feeling connected to that, other black people or anybody else who feels it, they can see that they can see that we're unified. Other than that, I feel like that's the only thing that does. Maybe for some with our mental, we see, okay, yeah, good. But yeah, in the last couple, the last 100 years, we've been protesting, and I don't think it's actually done anything as far as laws or changing our circumstances to at all. I don't think any our circumstances have changed due to protest, though. What do you think? Do you
Okay.
think? And I feel like, and you know, who was that person who said the revolution won't be televised? Was that Huey P. Newton? Who was that?
I think it was. I think it was actually. I think it was.
Okay, because I was thinking it was like a Black Panther. But
Hmm.
look at them, the Black Panthers, Malcolm X. They didn't really, I don't remember seeing them protest. The Black Panthers, they did demonstrations sometimes. But I don't think I don't think Malcolm X was for protesting. He was about, actions that we could take to to move forward, because I feel like with protesting we're kind of asking, sometimes begging the government to see us and to hear us, and I feel like we should see by now that it's not gonna we keep waiting on them to change our situation, and I felt we have to change it. And although we live here, still feel like it's creative actions that we can take to advance our circumstances,
Mm.
and it'll have to take enough people cohesively, enough of us to do it. Because I feel like we keep talking, and I feel like civil rights generation was talking, and then their descendants were talking, and I feel like the only time it's going to change is if we actually do some actions and change it for the upcoming generations to build on that action. And yeah, you
Mm.
can talk and act at the same time, but I feel like we've only been acting, talking. So yeah,
You know what? I think you brought up a very good point. When you said that the Black Panthers and other groups like that, they used protests. It's not that they were anti-protests. They used protests to, I guess, garner more support and to show their unity. But that wasn't the main thing. The main
yeah,
thing.
they weren't really like, oh yeah, protesting. They did other things. They did a lot more out of that. Like, I don't think they're known for protesting. I feel like demonstrations, like the only one I can think of was when they went to the Capitol with the guns, which
Mhm.
they went through legal channels to do that, and they didn't attack or anything like they just did at the Capitol just now. Remember what just
Oh,
happened? They had a legal, yeah, they were just standing there, and they had a problem. So Yeah, they didn't go there guns blazing or anything. So they did demonstrations to show their unity, to show that okay, we're showing you like our power through our unity. And
Hmm.
I don't think that's what protests do, though. I don't think they're showing power. I feel like it's more, it seems more submissive from the ones I've seen, especially lately. Like they're laying down on the ground, like, with their hands up, like helpless. I'm like, I'm not going to show them I'm helpless. I'm not going to lay down and beg you to see me as a person. Like, I'm going to make you see me as a person.
Hmm.
But and so I feel like if we all had that mindset, though, I feel like we would, change. And, I feel like we would progress. But yeah,
Mm.
what,
Yeah, no, no, I hear you, man. No, I'm 100% with you. I'm not with that at all. Like every time I see that, it kind of just, it makes my skin crawl because I'm like, this is exactly what they want you to do.
yeah,
You don't need to do
exactly.
that. Like stand up, you know.
Yeah.
Um, with
Hmm.
the protests, going back to the Black Panthers, they didn't use that as their main action. They used it,
Yeah.
but they used it for its purpose. Its purpose was to garner support and to show their unity. But then behind the scenes, what were they doing? They were working in little groups, little chapters. I mean, there was a chapter in almost every major city in the U.S. And those chapters
Yeah.
were getting their members together. They were teaching them their rights. They were giving them guns, which is also their right, right? So it's your guys'
Yeah, they were
American right to bear
educating
arms.
them and stuff and trying to break their mental bonds and stuff. They were educating them. I don't
Exactly.
know if you, yeah, yeah.
No, go
So,
ahead. Go
and
ahead.
they saw that they had to be the change they wanted to see, not asking for the government to see it. But that was the threat. They knew that. That's why they had to stop them. In the way they did.
Exactly.
If it wasn't working, and that's how you know that still. I don't care nobody say most of them still want this system up. Because if they didn't, then they would be tearing it down. Like I see more people being upset over an election over racism in America against us.
Mm,
And I'm like, that just shows me what you care about. You don't care about racism. And the only time you doing it is and the only time you act like you do is when you're at protests. I'm talking
mm.
about other races. I don't see other races doing anything outside of protesting. Sadly, I don't see a lot of black people doing anything outside of protesting, but I do know that they're doing things. Oh, by the way, what do you think? Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you one thing though. What did you think of no, you kept saying they use protests though. Have we seen any like video footage of them protesting though? I just wanted to know.
Of the Black Panthers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Protesting, not demonstrating, like, just standing there. Because I see demonstrations different than protests. Kind of like you heard of the NFAC, they were doing demonstrations, but they weren't protesting, like marching with signs and stuff. I don't know. I guess I'm seeing it differently. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, since you brought that up, can you explain the difference between protesting and demonstration?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That I see protesting as you're marching and holding up signs, and you're coming together and you're marching on the road, and I feel like you're begging or asking. You're doing that to ask for a change. You're like pleading in the protest almost. That's why. And I see a demonstration though is like a show of your power through your unity, not really. Because protesting, I feel like anybody can come and do anything, and they just like, okay, like, no justice, no peace, see me as a human. And I see the main difference when I see in the protests, like the NFAC protests, not protest, but demonstrate, and when I see Black Lives Matter protests, I see them, like you said, we see them laying down, hands up, and, on their knees in front of the officers, and that's how they protest. When I see them demonstrate, I see them walking with guns. I see them, just showing like we're here, like showing their power through numbers, and not
Mm.
really asking for anything. Just showing that, we're not asking you for our right to exist. We're showing you that we do exist and that we're going to be here, and that we have numbers too. So that's why I see a difference. They're not really asking or holding signs or anything. I
Okay,
guess that's why I see the difference as.
okay. I think you're right. I think that the difference is very, very subtle. Because
Yeah.
if we just look at the words, right, the words are pretty they're pretty close in meaning. To protest is something pretty serious. I mean, when you, for instance, at work, if you're part of a union and you guys aren't being treated properly, what do? They say we're going to go on strike or we're going to protest. So it's a
Yeah, yeah,
very
see, yeah, the strike, yeah, because the strike though actually has like something behind it. You know, it's their
mm,
unity, their power through their unity. It's not really them, protesting it because they still at work. They just complaining and asking, and I feel like protests are asking to exist, and the demonstration you're showing that you do exist. I guess that's the main difference for me from
oh,
what
okay.
I've seen.
I see what
Yeah,
you're saying. I think you're seeing the extreme differences. You're looking at the far end. I mean, because
yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like
yeah.
it's a dimmer switch, right? We're
I
seeing the
see, I
extreme.
see both. I see what you're saying too, and I
Hmm.
see extreme. Like at the extreme, that's why I see, you know, and also at protests, they don't come with weapons either. At demonstrations, they come with weapons.
Right, right.
Yeah, see, so that's a big difference too. Where's that? Why the difference if they're the same?
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
hear you. I hear you. But once again, I see that those are two extremes because you can have a demonstration without weapons, but if you really want to have a demonstration, you bring weapons. You can have a protest with signs, or you can go to the next level, which is the way we don't want to go, is lying down and begging. Because now you've turned something positive and you turned it into a groveling event. You've turned it into a pity party. And
yeah, see,
you know,
that's exaggerated of what it already is, though. In a way, for me, that's feel like I feel like at the least it's a seed, and and at the most is that. I feel like that
Mhm.
comes from a place of what it already is. It's just exploited and expanded and grown into begging. But I feel like at the least it comes from that place though. I don't see the begging coming from nowhere. I feel like that's the essence, that's the element of what protesting is. That's just to me. That's how I'm expressing it. But
Mm,
I agree with you though. I feel like protesting can be seen as a type of demonstration. You
mhm.
know, maybe like a demonstration that showing that you just don't like something. But what are you gonna do about it? You're not doing anything about it. You're just asking. They can say no. And not to
Mm.
say demonstrations is not like you're just not asking, you're just showing that I don't know, you see what I'm saying? I'm
I see
trying to
what you're
explain
saying.
it.
I see what you're saying. And you know what? I actually, now that I've kind of heard what you're trying to say, really, and I'm understanding it a bit more, um, protests are a lot easier to take over than a demonstration.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. If somebody comes with a demonstration, it's a very clear message. This is what we're here for. This is what we're saying, and we're not going to change from that. A protest is kind of like, well, there's a bunch of reasons, and we don't even really know why we're here. Like this guy just says, I saw a bunch of people walking outside, so I came. This person came and said, yeah, we're going against we're going for our rights. It's like, do you know why you're here? No. Like a lot of people in the protest don't know. And then when that happens, it's very easy for other groups to hijack that protest
Yeah, and
and
I
then
had
use
that
it for
problem before. So
their
we
own
can talk
purposes.
about that next. Yeah,
Mhm.
continue. What did you say?
Yeah, yeah. So I was just saying that a very like a difference between a protest and a demonstration. Demonstrations are very difficult to hijack because they
Yeah,
feel that
yeah.
they're like I'm here
With a
for this
purpose,
reason.
yeah.
This is my purpose. I'm
Pinpoint it.
not gonna be dissuaded from it at all. But a protest, there's so many reasons. There's no real cohesiveness. So then that becomes easy to fragment. I mean, perfect example during the BLM protests. It was so easy for these outsiders to come in and start lighting fires and start causing riot.
Yeah, and
Um,
then they all get called it. Like, oh no, BLM is doing that. Yeah, so it's
exactly
like it's
because
so
they weren't.
easy to
Yeah, because
to
they weren't
infiltrate.
so straightforward. Like that wouldn't have happened in Malcolm X's day. People would say like, no, that's not our people. Those people over there that are doing all that looting, you can see the clear distinction. We're here for this reason, and then people knew that. But with the protests, it's like it's just a big crowd. It's a mob essentially. And then if you piss off one person, then the whole mob loses their minds, and then the government can say, "Aha, see these BLM people. You guys are just you're just trying to cause a ruckus," and then their whole meaning gets.
Hmm. That's
That's what I
true.
see with
That's
those
true.
things.
Yeah, that's true. And the actions outside of walking, I feel like is different. Like you say, they're chanting and doing things.
Hmm.
I'll take that even further. I think that a lot of protests also can easily get hijacked because these other groups can come in and, like you said, come in and infiltrate it. They'll make it about them. And I feel like to really get the most out of what you're doing out of a cause, you have to, each cause has its own thing. And I feel like when other people try to latch on and get in and stuff,
Hmm.
it's diluting the reason why at least I came here. Now you might have, a just cause too, but I feel like when we're talking about one thing like demonstrations, I feel like we're coming for one purpose, and
Hmm.
other things can't, like, okay, we're all demonstrating about these totally unrelated things and we're coming together. I don't think that helps. I feel like we have to have a pinpointed discussion.
Hmm. I agree.
I'm sure
And
you can. I'm sure some things where that's happened, even especially in BLM, where they actually about a whole bunch of things. So other than black people. So yeah,
well,
but I'm only for the phrase, the organization. I'm not. I thought, but no, some revelations came out. I'm not really for the organization anymore. I don't. Yeah, how they spend their money, where it goes, who funds them, their message, what they say their mission statement is, and all of that. So,
yeah.
what do you think about the organization itself? Do you know much about them?
To be honest, I mean, for the same reason, I'm kind of turned off from it because
Yeah, you
it
should.
started good, right? But then they didn't stick to the message, and then these other groups took their platform, and now BLM stands for, it's like everyone, like any problem you have, just come bring it to us, and then we'll put
Yeah,
your problem at the forefront. It's like, why are you guys here in the first place?
exactly.
Oh well,
It,
um, George Floyd, really, really. So that's what caused you guys to come. But now, I mean, I'm just taking this for example. Um,
yeah.
now the LGBTQ community is
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. It's really all about that and
yeah,
them, and it's taken away from black, from our struggles and stuff. And I feel like they're using black people though to boost what they're talking about, to
of course.
progress their own cause. So, and that's really what it's about. It's funded and ran by like a white guy and I think some LGBT people. So, that's,
Yeah.
they could have just called it that.
Mm-hmm.
LGBT matters, but it's kind of sinister to me to name it
Yeah.
after a group, but just to use them for your own purposes. And
Mm.
yeah, and I have an issue with that. And now during this thing we can talk about this Asian thing, and I feel like now and I was thinking about it the other day, they using Black History Month to make it all about them and talk, and then trying to say that black people are the primary ones attacking them, and they automatically saying it's a hate crime because an Asian person happened to get attacked. And I'm just
Mm.
like, there's people getting attacked every day, but if we have to fight, black people have to fight and claw for it to be
Mm.
called a hate crime, and they try to convince us it's everything else. But right away, you see some attack on camera, and it's a random attack, and you automatically say it's a hate crime. Why?
Mm. Yeah.
But
No,
I
I
feel like
can see
that's
that.
all that's for a reason. I feel like that's to take away from what we're talking about. And they keep saying, oh, and this just started happening in 2020 because of the COVID thing. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them are attacks. And they're not killings. It's definitely no police brutality against Asian people.
Mm.
And they got laws already, and we haven't. Despite, and they haven't really had to do anything. They haven't protested, and they haven't done. I mean, I heard recently they just did this year, but they haven't protested and been through the same things protests as long as we have. But I just feel like that just goes to the hierarchy of it, because Jeannie Mai said there's no hierarchy to racism, and I feel like that was very ignorant to say because
Oh,
that's what it's
oh,
all about.
no, that's such an ignorant statement.
Yeah,
Um,
she did. Yeah, and people liked it too. I'm like, it's like that's terrible. Like a
um,
lot of people liked it. She said a lot of things in there. She was talking about name calling and slurs and comparing that to George Floyd and stuff. And I'm just like,
uh,
it's like everybody wants to be oppressed for some reason. Like, we'll take your spot if you want to be oppressed instead of us. We can do that.
um,
But that's not the truth, though. We're not wanting this. We're trying to make sure the truth is known. And people are like, when we go hard and saying what it is, they're like we're making it up, like we want, like this is a contest. But I feel like they're turning it into a contest because they want it. Really, they want more attention. They want attention. That's why they're doing that, and they do get attention, and they get things because of that when they make it seem like they're more pressed. But I feel like everybody knows what's going on, but black people at them.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a hierarchy to it. That's why we're, yeah. So even when I
Um,
say we're the most oppressed in this country, even around the world, people make it into a contest and stuff, even though they don't have facts, and I do to back that up. But they don't, it's uncomfortable or they just want to deflect. They don't want to do anything for us. And so that's why they say we're not, it's not true. Or you're just trying to play a game. They try to guilt you or gaslight you about it. So you just shut up. But
which is
nobody,
sorry,
but
which is
nobody's telling, yeah, but just real quick, nobody's telling the Asians to shut up or anybody or the LGBT community to shut up and move on, even though they were never enslaved. But go ahead, though. Sorry.
no, no, no. I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that that's even more proof that there is a hierarchy
Yep.
because if you're not going to like if you're going to listen to the blacks as much as you listen to everybody else, then that proves that there's no hierarchy because now you're
Yep.
looking in the oppressor's eyes, everyone's equal. We're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you. But the fact that the black people don't get taken care of, their message isn't heard. That's proof right there that there is a hierarchy because we're not going to listen to you, but the people that haven't been oppressed as you have, we're going to take their thing and make it more important. We're going to take it from here to here. That looks like a hierarchy to me. One
Yeah,
above the
and
other.
even if they turn it. And even if they turn that something into something, I felt nothing into something. I feel like it's all just to drown out our voice. And when we say, well, it's been going on longer and harsher for us, they want to say, well, so what? You can't take their pain away or anything like that. And I feel like that's also a deflection. And, that's just a reason why you don't want to deal with our problems, why you want to see, they always say that, but they never say why they're putting their issues in front of ours. Even if they're equal, you're still not addressing our problem. You're only addressing their problem. So, which they're not
Okay.
equal. So, but yeah,
No, they're not equal. And honestly, I think people need to hear this because this is like I'm sick and tired of hearing it. Okay, um, yes, just because people are going through pain and people are going through like destruction, there are still levels. Okay, if because this happened here in my province here in Alberta, there was a
yeah.
bus crash.
What country are you in?
Canada.
UK,
Yeah.
Canada. Okay, I forgot.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's
go
okay. That's
ahead.
no problem. So in my province, there was a bus crash that actually happened from my city. There was a hockey team, and I'm not saying that this is. I'm just going to say all the facts. It's a team full of white kids. They're playing hockey, and they were
Yeah.
traveling to another city to go play. They got hit by a transport truck, and it basically killed everyone on board except for maybe like two or three of the players. One of them is like he's paralyzed from the neck down. It was terrible. There was about 23 of them. It's called the Humboldt crisis.
Okay,
Um,
I'll look that up. I never heard of that. Go ahead.
okay, yeah, you might
What
have
year
heard of
did
it.
that happen?
Oh, I don't know, man. Maybe probably
Oh,
5 years now. Maybe 5 years, a little bit
okay.
more. It seems like it was just yesterday. All the time is going to me. But so this happened. 23 of these kids, Caucasian kids, they were all killed. The transport truck driver was an Indian guy, and it turns out they launched a huge investigation into his driving record, and it turns out that he was part of this. He was part of this company that didn't really train their drivers properly. So he ended up getting charged, and it made this huge deal. It was making global news. Now,
Oh,
the thing
wow.
that's messed up about it is that look, it's sad what happened. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
when that takes precedence over at the same time, there's a genocide of 30,000 people, men, women, and
Yeah.
children getting killed, and that one is making the news more than this one. You cannot tell me, oh, why are you trying to make that one more important? These people died too. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, they just don't want
30,000,
us to acknowledge our pain at all. That's what it
yes,
is. They just want us to shut up and be there for everybody else but ourselves, and while they ignore us. That's what. And if we speak up and say what we're going through, we're making it about. Even though they're making it about them, we started to make it about us. And they villainize that. We should make it about us.
right.
Finally.
And if we look at if we get to the root of the situation, if you cannot see that there are levels to destruction. There are levels to pain. If you can ignore 30,000 people being massacred and you're going to put the 24 and say that they're even, then you can't even really tell me that you value each of those lives, because what do those lives mean to you?
Yeah, yeah, that's so ignorant. I hate that
It's
too. I'm
ignorant.
like, I hate that. Oh no, one life isn't equal to a bunch of lives and all that. No, no, they're not equal. One life isn't equal to 100 lives. Like, what are you talking
It's
about?
not.
When we
Thank
hear
you.
that thing, and I feel like that's just cognitive dissonance. People want to put their emotions over the facts.
Right.
Okay, that's sad, but this would be sadder. One person died versus 100 people dying. No, yeah, you can. I can make a choice. Yeah.
These are the same people. These are the same people where if they were given a picture of a starving child and a starving dog, they'd be like, "I want to save the dog," and you're like,
Oh
"What's wrong with
yeah,
you?
yeah,
Like, what's
especially
wrong with
white
you?"
people. I'm
Basically,
just
basically,
saying,
without
yeah,
saying it, but yes. And some black people that are confused start acting like these
brainwashed
white
and
people.
conditioned, yeah,
You
too.
know, but now they can sit there and you can watch a video. You can watch a George Floyd video or somebody else like that, another black person being clearly, wrongly detained, beaten, killed, strangled on TV, and it isn't even, they don't even flinch. They'll just be watching it like this. And then the first thing they'll say is, well, he must have done something wrong.
Yeah, they
You just
make
watch,
it. They make a reason. And hey,
yeah.
Sabrina, I just wanted to say, hey, everybody in the chat that's there. But I'm gonna try to save it. Hopefully, nothing messes up. But I know I did it before, where I saved this to my channel. That's the real purpose. And
Mm,
hopefully, you save it and post it on your channel. And if you have a YouTube channel or whatever, because I feel that people should see this. But yeah, no, it's because they don't care about us. That's why. They don't. That's why, when it's another race and the same thing happens to them,
hmm
they want to say, they put the blame where it belongs, but when it's us, it's our fault somehow. And I feel like we need to wake up and realize that and just move forward without continuously. I was just saying this earlier. I was like recording and saying this, that we need to what was it, conversation, we need to start changing our situation, not the conversation, because
mm,
we keep changing. Talking is not going to get us anywhere. That's why talking alone isn't going to get us anywhere. I just feel like until somebody breaks that cycle of just complaining or talking and stuff, it's going to be perpetual, because they're not going to save us. It's kind of like the white Jesus thing, where some black people are waiting on somebody else to come save them, but I feel like the savior is within them, and we could save ourselves if we just unify. But they don't see it that way. Yeah,
mm.
because
Yeah,
I
and that's,
feel like,
it's very
hmm?
sad too. I mean, that's very sad because, I mean, that's really the slave mentality, right? The
Yeah,
slave
it is.
mentality is the mental chains, right? I mean, we've heard this all many times before, but a horse is. I mean, if we take a horse for example, a horse is, I don't know how many times stronger than a human being. Like 100,
Yep.
let's just say like 400 times stronger. He could
Yep.
destroy it with a single kick. But the horse is
Mhm.
tamed. The horse listens when you yank on its thing, and it doesn't realize that it has all this power because it's mentally enslaved. It thinks, well,
Yeah, and guess
you
what?
know,
And guess what? I was just thinking of this. Guess what? The white See, and they try to shame us into not saying white people and all this, but when white people say black people doing this or any other race, they can call out a race. They shame us into not wanting to say what's going on and identify them. But I will, especially for this conversation. But I was just thinking of horses yesterday.
mm,
Um, and how white people, they call it breaking the horse. They call it
mm,
breaking. They break their spirit, their freedom, their free spirit. And that's actually a process they go through, and that's what they did to us. And even when I think about buck breaking, if you heard of that,
I
and I
have.
learned about that previously. I haven't always known about that. I learned about it last year, I believe, or the year before that. But I really went in depth with it recently, and I know somebody, Tarek, she is making a movie about it, and even talking about how they're breaking black people today, because they're doing it. It just changed form, but it's still here.
Mhm,
Um, but yeah, they break the horse, and they named it that. And they for some reason they want to break animals, and they want to break us, and they want to see us as animals. But I feel like that's, even when you talk about DNA wise and all of that, I was saying it's ironic though because DNA says the different the opposite of what they've been saying all this time, basically.
Mm.
About 100% human. They thought we were 2/3 human and all that. But then the science says they have Neanderthal DNA, and then black people were the 100% humans. And I'm like, that's just science. Black scientists and white scientists came up with that. But I'm just like, that's the opposite. But I feel like everything that we are, they want to be, and through history, they whitewashed history to replace us and put themselves in the stead. And
Mm-hmm.
even to that extent, they did that until who's 100% human and all that. And they've proven it themselves that they aren't. But no, I feel like that's not really known knowledge, but I look into all that scientific things and all that. And I did a lot of research on melanin, and I didn't know there were like 3 or 4 different kinds of melanin, and I looked into what they all do and stuff like that. So I look into the science. So I have facts, and they can't really say, facts are what they want to say or reverse racism or anything like that. It's just the facts. So, and if the facts paint you to be a certain way, or if history paints you to be a certain way, you just have to accept that. And if you don't, it's just because you knew it all along and you just want to be in denial. That's how I see it.
Well, you know what? Of course they knew it all along.
Yeah.
No other group of people has ever been so insecure as white people. Who wakes up one day and says, "Am I a human being? Are those other human beings human beings? Wait, we must be human beings. They must be animals." Like no other group of people has really pushed that. So these guys pushed it so hard that they wanted to prove it through science. And then they started trying to, but then the very science that they used it turned around. It started proving
Yeah.
that no, 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 no. The thing that you said that other people weren't, that's you. This,
Yeah.
what do they call
Yeah.
it? This Neanderthal blood, it's almost
Yeah.
exclusively found in Europe. Homo
That's
sapien
where
blood,
it came
it's
from.
found
Yeah. That's where it came from.
exclusively in black Africans. So now it's like, uh-oh. Now they have to now they have to go back and retract their statements. So like
Yeah.
now they're saying that Neanderthal is not actually not human. They're just saying it's a different kind of human. But they weren't saying that
No,
before.
they keep saying after the
They weren't
truth
saying that
actually came
before.
out, they started coming out with lies and stuff. Because
Yeah.
I heard about somebody saying now they're saying last year that they came out with saying, oh, actually, no, we tested the DNA again. Black people have some Neanderthal DNA too, actually. And I'm just like, okay, before when you tested it, I guess you must have missed it. No, you know what you're doing. You know
Yeah.
that people are waking up and realizing the lies and looking at the facts and making their judgments based off of that instead of lies. And you want to make the truth into lies. You want to try to reverse it now, walk it back because you didn't think that people would actually look. And that's
Yeah.
so true, though. They are insecure, and they know it. They did know it all along because even the Kemites, which they named Egyptians, but Kemet, they stole a
Yeah.
lot of information and knowledge from them. The Moors went over there and taught them how to do a bunch of things among bathing and walking and all that.
Mm.
And that's a part of history too. So, and they want to act like they invented everything. They were the first humans, even though their own science says that we were the first human. They have so many theories about the original human came out of Africa and they were dark skinned and then they went out into the other parts of the world and then they just became lighter and their hair just and I guess and they forget about the hair part and their hair just magically became straight because they were in a different climate. No, that's not what it is. And the Eskimos been up there and they dark skinned. So what's their excuse? They see less sun than Europe. So that's and I never believed that theory. They just wanted to say that to get away from them being part of Neanderthals and descending from Neanderthals. And I found this scientific article that says that a long time ago, the original human and the Neanderthals, over decades of mating and interbreeding, probably raping, that's how the white people came along, and
Mm.
various other races. I found that and I I shared it. I should probably make it a piece, but they said that's how the modern Caucasian came about from, the interbreeding and over time. And it
Mm.
was a various of things, but what we all know though is that the black people were the original human, so and are the human and human hue, that's where they get from color hue.
Mm. Right, right.
So, yeah.
No, I agree. It's funny because we tend to understand genetics when we look at animal breeding, right? But human beings, we're not so
Yeah.
different. We're animals as well,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And
you
there's
know,
different breeds. Like that's what I was saying. Yeah, they want
yeah,
to act
and
like, oh no, the only thing different is our skin. No, it's not. That's not the only difference.
that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing.
Yeah,
Like
they want
we're
to know
physically
everything
different.
else.
If you look at the
Yeah,
bones of a black person, you can tell by looking at the bones that this is a black man and this was a
yep,
a white woman or whatever. You
yep.
can
Because
tell,
they made yep,
And so, another thing I want to bring up is, people find it so difficult because if you look at DNA, there's something called mitochondrial DNA, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
And the
they
Eve
found that,
gene is in the black woman. Yeah,
right, right. And then they find that there's how many kinds of mitochondrial DNA? There's three main kinds of mitochondrial DNA. But from those three major DNA types, through the blending and the mixing of them, you get all the current types that we see now. And people are like,
yeah,
no, that's impossible. Okay, there's three primary colors. There's red, there's blue, and there's I don't know what the other one is, yellow or something. But
yellow. Yeah,
from those three colors, I mean, red, green, and blue on a TV on an LED screen. From those
yeah,
three
yeah,
primary colors, you get all the colors that you see. So it's not hard to
yeah.
believe there. So why is it so hard to believe that three different kinds of mitochondrial DNA, including the Eve gene, why is it so hard to
Hmm.
believe that through mixing you can get Filipinos, you can get these people, you can get Native Americans, you can get Europeans, you can get this? Why is it so hard to believe? But then when you go to black people, you can't make a mixture to make black people. We are one of the primary
I
colors.
know, and
We're one of
the
the things you
science
can't get
says
rid of.
that yeah, they've admitted that the science says that, and that goes to how they whitewash, and we can I don't want to really discuss the Bible that much, but how they whitewashed even the Bible to say Adam and Eve were white and everybody was white in there, and that's not true either through my research. But duh.
Hmm.
Even though it took place in Africa, but anyways, and I feel like a lot of people, especially black people, they do some research and then they stop at a place. And I'm like, but they don't realize, and they say, oh, well, white people, well, I don't want to talk about that right on this one, but we can
Yeah.
talk about that later. But they whitewash everything from Egyptians, yeah, too. And I learned recently, back to the bones though, I just wanted to make a comment about the bones. They dug up bones that revealed that it was a lot of African people that were here before Christopher Columbus. A
Hmm.
lot of the Native Americans were black too, were dark
Hmm.
skinned. That's what the original Native American were. And so, yeah, and when the Eve gene mutates, it can form all the other races we see today. But what they're leaving out of that too is when it mutates for a reason. It's mutating because of the interbreeding with the Neanderthals. We gotta keep that in there too. It's just
Hmm.
not one day. But they can. But albinos are different. But the albinos too, even they still have the curly hair. They still have the afro. They just have all the other features. So I feel like that still come from the Neanderthals. But yeah, it's both.
No, I mean, with the albinos, you're right. I mean, there's just a deficiency. There's something wrong with their body. It's just not producing the melanin. But
Exactly, but they don't
everything else.
produce the melanin either, though. They look just like them. I said this is something we have that
Mhm.
they don't. I could be white if my melanin was stripped from me. Like, look at I won't say any names, but
Michael
look at some
Jackson.
celebrities. But yeah, so it's not like So I could look just like you if I stripped my melanin, if I flattened my hair. But no, that's the original human looked a certain way. It was supposed to be a certain way, but yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and the Caucasus Mountain, that's why they came from Caucasian because of the Caucasus Mountain and Caucasian. Like, there's a relationship between the Caucasian and Asians. I heard that somebody said they have the same type of DNA, but I didn't do a bunch of research on that myself yet, so I can't really speak on it. But yeah,
Okay, yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
going back to that, I mean, we're human beings. We're not that different from animals, right? We have
yeah,
every human being has a. I mean, I have a mom and dad. You have a mom and dad, and eventually, when you trace back enough, you'll start to see that there's people that were interbreeding at some point, right?
yeah,
Just like with
yeah.
any other animal, right? And so,
Hmm.
I mean, when we talk about pit bulls, like I just thought this was kind of because we were talking about the breeding.
Yeah, yeah,
When we look at pit bulls, and we look at, and then if you take a mutt versus a purebred pit bull, we know what's in the mutt, right? And I don't mean this in any kind of derogatory way, but we know
No,
what's
yeah,
in the
I
mutt,
get you. No, yeah, just yeah, I get
right?
you.
The dog,
Yeah,
it has this breed in it. It has this breed. It has this breed. It has this breed. That's why the dog looks like that. And then when you look at
yeah.
the purebred pit bull, you ask yourself what's in it, and then you're like, well, it's just a pit bull. There's nothing else. It's just a pit bull. You can't break it down any further than that.
Yeah,
Right?
that's where it came from.
That's
That's
where it came
that's
from.
how exactly, and that goes against that thing about oh we're all the same type of human or that whole conversation because yes, although we it's like dog canine,
Hmm.
and then the breeds within that, that's how they can interbreed because they have those similarities or whatever, because
Right.
certain things can interbreed like an elephant and a dog. But
Exactly.
yeah, there's differences, and the only the isn't and they want to and if they were right, the only difference was the differences between the breeds would be their fur color, and I'm just like,
Right.
no, that's not true. So that
That's
goes
not
against
true.
that theory. They
It
were
could,
they might as well they saying oh racism is really a thing. It's a social construct. I guess dog breeds on the thing. That's just a social
that
construct.
must be a
They're
social
all the
construct.
same really.
It doesn't. It
And I
doesn't
made
work.
that, huh?
Yeah. No. No. I agree with what you're saying. Like that's what I
Yeah,
mean. Like, oh, it's just a social construct. Well, everything's a social construct if you're going to
yeah,
talk about
everything and every label is just a name. Everything has a label. Like, wait, like they want to say, even love itself is a label. It's a label for an emotion you feel or whatever. That's a word. You're just putting it into words. So I don't know why people are against labels when everything is a label. They're like, I don't want to be called this. I want to be called that. So you just switch the label. Like that doesn't like.
you actually you can't actually live in the world if you don't have social constructs. Like, it's
Exactly.
impossible.
That's
If you
structure. Like you gotta know what things are. You name them. So
Yeah,
like,
you name them. Thank you. You name them. You can't just say, oh, they're all the same. I don't see the difference between a tree and a shrub. Really? Really? You don't see the difference?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I know they're
exactly. Even though
plants.
they're in the same genetic family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but you can clearly see there's a difference. So let's just call this one a
yeah,
tree and let's call this one a shrub. No, you can't do that. That's politically incorrect. Like, no, that's silly. So when you don't have social constructs, you can't actually live in this world. You might as well just stay under a rock because you can't do anything. You know,
yeah, and that's what they want. That's what they want.
it's
I feel
silly.
like
It's laughable, really. It's really laughable because it's like, okay,
it's an
you
agenda, though. The people who aren't aware of the agenda, they like they got taught it, brainwashed it, or indoctrinated into it, and so they think it's from an earnest place, but no, it actually has a purpose. So they used to say that we were less than human, and now
the
I was just
sign.
saying, this is my theory. Now they trying to say that we're all humans instead of just the truth or whatever. So I feel
Mhm.
like okay, no, I knew I wasn't human before. This is just an example though, not to say this what it's saying. But like let's say that they knew they weren't human before, and they saw and they knew who the real humans were, and so they enslaved them and then taught them that they were less than humans, and now they're saying okay, now no, actually we're equal. We're all the same. We're all the same.
Mm.
And I feel like that's to, I don't know, preventative action, from us taking action to save ourselves, to break free of the society they built, the racist society that they've built, and, separating from that. I feel like they try to be like, oh, well, if you did, then, it's to be all the same thing anyway. And I disagree with that because in history, if we're all in the same, even by human nature, which is another thing that I've thought about deeply and looked at in history, we all would have done the same things. There's islands. I feel like there's like experiments, like isolated experiments, even because there's an island with black people who hasn't been touched by society, and they haven't done the same things that the Europeans have, that the Asians have, just by time, because
Mm.
if they were the same, then they would take the same steps, the same progression, but they still living with nature and all that. And, and they still, happy. I don't know because they kill anybody that come on because guess what? They had a sister island. And when the sister island let people come on, and they let like a lot of white people come on, and then over time it became trashy. Everybody was on drugs. The island was just just polluted and stuff like that. But the one who didn't let them come over, since they let somebody come over one time, and somebody ended up dying from their a family member ended up dying on the island. One of the people ended up dying, so they stopped letting anybody come over. But you see the differences though between them, and even when we look at human people though, look at black people. We've been here the longest because we're the original humans. And Europeans are they're newer, so I don't know which of them, but they've been here a shorter time than we have. We've been here for tens and thousands of years longer. And all that time we didn't take the same steps that they did. We didn't do the same things. We could have done all those things if that was in our nature. We could have done all those things that they did before they did it. We would have did it to them, but we didn't. So, do you ever think about that, compare that in history and think about that?
Oh, all the time. I mean,
Yeah, because I'm like,
in,
we didn't do the same actions, and we wouldn't have. A lot of things we do now was introduced to us by different people, different races of people. So yeah.
it's morality, really. When you have the power to do something and you choose not to do it out of the goodness of your heart, that actually makes you more moral than that other person, right?
And
Um,
maybe that goes into that human thing. They call it humane and inhumane, and I guess less human. And that goes back to the DNA probably. But I'm just saying, go ahead.
no, it might.
you know.
I won't say anything there,
Yeah,
but
I
I mean,
will.
you're
Yeah,
absolutely
I'm
right,
just
right? I
saying.
mean, if we want to connect the words, we could do that. But really, in reality, it's just that we're more humane, right? And everybody knows that.
Yeah,
I mean, I could take a very small example. I mean, when it comes to even homeless people, if a homeless person is asking for money, they're more likely to ask the black person than they are to ask a white person. I've seen this many times, and they'll come up to you and be like, "Brother, please, man, I haven't eaten." Why? Because they know that the black person's gonna be like, "Oh," even if they're mean, they'll be like, "Man, you haven't eaten? Man, here, take $1." But the white guy will be like, "Get away from me, you homeless person." Da, 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 da. And the homeless person, even if it's a homeless white guy, he knows not to ask his own people. So he's appealing to a higher sense of morality. So when I
yeah,
see
that they
that in
can
those
sense it.
examples, it goes back to the ancient world. When, in the times when black people were in charge of this world, really, when we were the world
Yeah,
power, military
yeah,
powers, we could have
yeah.
gone and did what Alexander the Great did. We could have went and enslaved the entire world many times over. But
Yeah, but we didn't even have that
we
wants or
didn't
need. We
we didn't have
traveled
it
to
in.
all the other places and helped them.
Exactly.
We started new things. And you
Exactly.
make a great point about that, because and I feel like that goes back to what we're talking about with the protests and people wanting us to get on board. And this is why we're not where we should be, because we have that humane characteristics, and that's why we do put others up in front of ourselves. All the other races not doing that. They keep putting themselves first and then asking us to be backup, and nobody's dealing with our problems, and I feel like that's inhumane. But we're dealing with everybody else's problems, and if we did put ourselves first, we'll advance. So that's fair, but I feel like after a while we should just start to do for ourselves. But yeah, but that goes back to that though. That's why we're giving all of our time and attention. We're giving it more to other people's causes than to our own. So that even goes to that, because nobody else is doing that. No other race is doing that. So
Well,
yeah.
actually, when it gets to that point, it's actually not being humane anymore. When I
I
mean,
mean the morality thing, like, but that's to a detriment, of course. Yeah.
no, I get what you're saying, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that when it gets to that point, that's actually not even morality anymore. That's just plain wrong. Because if you have a mother, if a mother were to take food out of her own children's mouths and feed it to the neighbor's children, we would say, "What's wrong with you? Take care of your children first, and then if there's food left over, you take care of that person's children." When it comes to black people saying, "Oh, we're so humane, we have such good hearts, which is why we do these things." No, you're confused. Don't confuse being confused and being nice. There's a
Well, I
difference.
think it's stupid, but I feel like it traces back from that, but yeah.
But okay,
I
but
feel like it's stupid to it when it crosses the line. I
when it
feel like
crosses the line, but it
yeah.
never happened. Like if we go back to the ancient world, it's not that they were stupid. Like when they made the decision not to go and enslave another group of people or to go
Oh
and
no, not that. I'm
conquer a
talking
group
about
of people.
today. I'm talking about us helping everybody else but ourselves. I'm talking,
Oh, right, right. But
yeah.
that what they did back then, that was a
That
more
was
moral
immoral,
decision.
yeah.
That was morality, right? They
Yeah, that was
weren't
just
they weren't
moral. Yeah.
yeah, they weren't enslaving themselves to stop enslaving another group of people. No, they would just say, look, that's silly. Why would we do that? Let's just advance ourselves. Let's just advance mathematics. Let's just do all these great things and be awesome. Let those people, do whatever they want. If they need help, if these guys are dying from diseases, let's go over there and teach them how to bathe themselves. Let's teach them that don't eat this, don't eat that. You'll live longer. But in terms of dominating them, we don't really have that in us. The
And
Romans did,
even,
the Greeks
yeah,
did, Genghis Khan did. All these
yeah,
really
all of them.
non-black peoples had this
Yeah,
drive
all
to
of them.
go and take over other people. We didn't really have that in us as black people. When
We
you come
even
back,
fought their wars sometimes. Like the Moors, they were fighting for like other countries. I didn't know that, but whether they taught them stuff, they were a part of their army sometimes. And I was like, they was like helping,
they
but
were
it
they were
didn't.
helping they were helping other oppressed groups. So once again, that's morality. When they were hearing that there's this small group over there that's being oppressed by another European group, and they're doing this like it's inhumane. They're going over there, they're slicing up their women, they're doing all this stuff. We can't
Hmm.
stand for that. We're gonna go send over a regiment and actually go and destroy that people. The Egyptians did the same thing for the Israelites. There's many times in the Bible where it says that King Taharka from Egypt went up and he attacked the Syrians and helped the children of Israel because the Syrians were going to wipe them out.
Yeah.
So it happened a lot of times in the ancient world. I don't know why
And
people
look,
tend to
yeah,
forget that. Like
and
black
even when you
people have
say
always
that,
been
yeah,
moral. They've always been moral
yeah.
to some degree. I find,
And
anyways.
I agree. And even in the Bible, when you just said that, remember when Esau's descendant, I forgot the kingdom called, but in the Israelites, they had they towns next to each other, and when the
Yeah.
Israelites were attacked, they didn't help them. So
Right.
that goes back to that, how they didn't help. They could have stood by, but they didn't. So
Right.
and we know that they were white. Esau, all of that. We know that, but
Mm.
That's a good point. Oh, and also I wanted to say this before somebody else in the comments or whoever later on, whoever sees this, how they try to say, oh well, black people enslaved each other. That's a lie. They had indentured servants back then because and I did a lot of research on this. They actually served a term, and it was actually either war criminals or things like that, or orphans of the state and things like that. Slavery that didn't come from our words. And I feel like they want to say that to try to equalize it. But even if we look at how they were treated, and they also had rights too. They were
Hmm.
basically prisoners,
Hmm.
and they didn't have prison cells, so that's what they were. So
Right.
and they actually lived in the house. It was kind of like corrective justice, whatever. Like they wronged somebody, okay, you gotta go work for them or whatever like that. It was different things like that. Now we look at what they did to those people while they were in bondage and look at what happened in American child slavery, mass differences, big, huge differences, how
Huge
how
differences.
inhumane they were and how we were humane to even to other tribes and stuff, whether we went to war and conquered the other one or had war captives, we didn't treat them the same way that they treated black people during slavery. They did atrocious things, and they even did it to themselves during the Holocaust. That was them doing that to themselves. So all the evils you saw in that, like, let's not say that's not white people. That was white people. That was white on white crime. So like, let's talk about white on white crime because that's way worse than black. So,
Mm.
but yeah. So and I thought about all of that. So they try to make an equivalent to say, oh, that was the same. But no, that wasn't slavery.
It wasn't the same.
Or just a form of punishment or indentured servitude or whatever, So
Hmm.
because they didn't lose all their rights, they still had rights. They couldn't treat them any kind of way, and we got to look at what was done during that time too. What was done to
Those,
the people during slavery? So, and it was nothing close to that. The only thing is that they didn't have the complete freedom. That was the only similarities they had between them. Yeah.
and and I just wanted to add that those people that were indentured servants or slaves, for lack of a better term,
Yeah, yeah.
they were still considered people.
Yeah,
The
they were. They had
American
rights still. Yeah.
Exactly. They had rights. The American slaves, they didn't even consider them people. They said that they're two-thirds of a person. They even considered them as chattel. They called it chattel
Yeah, because
slaves.
it was race based, and they knew who they wanted to degrade and belittle and demean us, and break us down because of who we were. That's yeah,
So right
and
there,
that's why we didn't do it to each other or to anybody else because we're confident in who we were. you know, all this, oh, I'm supreme. Somebody else said this. I don't know if you watched Queen Ahmadiyya Shakir before, but that's a great channel. I think you'll like it. But she said people who are supreme don't have to go around saying it and oppressing everybody else to know it, you know? And I feel like that's what we've seen. That's just like the people that scream, I'm real, I'm real, I'm real. You know, it's not true. You know, that's why you have to go and say it because you're trying to convince yourself and everybody else around you.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, what
No,
did you
no, no, no,
say?
no. No, that's actually very good. I like that. I mean, no, I mean, just to
Yeah.
piggyback off of that, same thing. Lions. Lions don't walk around trying to prove that they're lions. They just walk around like they're just like what?
Everybody knows. When you
Yeah,
look at them, they know.
everybody knows.
When
If
you
you
look
if
at,
you try
yeah,
me, then I'll swipe you, right? But other than that, I don't need to flex all the time because I know who I am. You know, other animals know it. So likewise, I just kind of wanted to add that in. But going back to the slave
yeah.
thing, if we look at the word slave, even actually, it comes from Slav, right? And we know that the Slavs were a group of people in Europe. They're still there, right? Slavic speaking
Okay,
peoples.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
enslaved.
Slovakian, I guess.
They were enslaved by the Romans. So much
Mhm.
so that the Romans said, "Ah, you know what? Our word for slave, we'll just call it Slav, slave, Slav, because we enslaved them so much."
Wow, I didn't know the origins of it, so I'm glad you're telling me because I be doing etymology and stuff, but I never
Mhm.
did for slave before, so you teaching me something new.
Okay. So yeah, so that's where it comes from. It comes from the Romans enslaving the Slavic peoples.
I
And
knew it didn't come from black people. That's what I knew for sure, but
no, no, definitely not, right?
yeah,
And
so
so that's
yeah,
why you can even see the similarities between the way the word sounds and all that stuff. When they
yep,
enslaved them so
slave.
much so that they just said, oh, you know what? What's that word that we're looking for that person that just does things for you? Ah, you know what? Let's just call it Slav. That's what we do to them. They're
Yeah,
Slavs.
and then
Slav.
different dialects
Slav.
and different, you know, yeah, different ethnicities they want to call white people came around and then just turned into slave. Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally
Yeah.
see that because that happens all the time. That happens with a lot of words too that we speak today in this English language. Which I wish I would have learned more younger because that's the best time to learn different languages I learned. But I do want to learn like different languages, some black languages, probably even Hebrew. I was interested in learning Japanese at one time too. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I
No,
think
I
that's
mean,
great.
more
Huh?
knowledge is always good, right? Like, the more language, I mean, languages are just tools, and the more tools you
Yeah,
have, the more you can do, right? So for one, would love to know different languages as well. But the funny thing
yeah,
about English is that English is, even though its base is a European language, it descends from Latin, it descends from all those other ones. But
yeah, yeah,
English has words from other languages that they just anglicize. Like, so English is
yeah.
it's really a weird language. It's a
Yeah,
language
so
that takes from all other
they even
languages.
stole other languages. They even
Yeah,
appropriated other languages to make their
yeah,
own because they couldn't make their own. That's the point. But
yeah. No, it's true. It's
you know,
true. So when you're
it's
learning English, you're not. Are you really learning a white man's language fully, or are you learning the world's language? Because there's Greek words in there. There's even Egyptian words that they've taken and
yeah,
anglicized. Like, they've changed this the way it sounds, but the root word itself comes from a different group of people. But now we say it so often that we're like, oh, it's an English word. No, it's not. It's not an English word. Its root comes from somewhere else. So are
yeah.
we
See,
really
they
learning
even want to claim that. They want to take over that. And they, you know, just like everything else. And we invented this language, and although we
a?
stole it from other people and just changed it a little bit. That happens to this day. They do it. They did it with the bonnet. And a white woman wanted to say just a couple years ago, "Oh, I invented this silk thing that you wear on your head when you go to sleep." Man, it's
See,
just like it's just tell us told us the time, their time.
something as trivial as that, somebody wants to take that. It's like, really? So, if somebody lies, if someone's willing to lie about the smallest things, does that not mean they're willing to lie about the big things too? If we can't even trust
Exactly.
you with something that small, why are we going to trust you with our entire history? Like, why are we going to trust you with whitewashing history, world's history? Like, no, you're clearly delusional. We shouldn't be listening to you guys, really.
Exactly, and that brings up another problem we have with, you know, in an ideal world, I would be like, you know, black kids being taught by pro-black people, pro-black people,
Mm.
because you know, in this school system, they're not going to tell us the truth. That's what it's all about. It's about perpetuating these lies that they've made. It's a white school system, and we're just in it, you know.
Mhm.
So And of course they'll lie to their own people because they want to perpetuate. That's how they perpetuate it, you know. They
Yeah.
pass down the lies. They're not gonna tell them the truth, and maybe behind closed doors they do tell them the truth at one point. I really don't know, you know.
Mm. No,
But
no.
I think the people at the top do know the truth, though. People they do. It's people that's alive now that know the truth of what they were doing way back then, you know.
Oh,
And
of
it's
course.
somehow that keeps perpetuating. So
Yeah.
I think it's a purposeful thing. Though. I don't think it's an accident or, oh, you know, they just because they try to say, oh, they just taught it. You know, like that goes back to when we're talking about human nature. I feel like it's more nature versus nurture with them anyway, because like you said, the inhumane thing, the humane thing, why does this keep happening? Why is it they still acting that way from way back then? They still acting that way to today? And who started that? If somebody started it to teach their offspring, then that still says something about their nature when it was the inception of it, you know, because it
Hmm.
didn't just come out of nowhere. I'm
No,
talking
yeah.
about, oh, you know, racism is just taught. But okay, who taught the first white person to be racist then if it was just taught? Because, you know, you got to learn from somewhere. Or did it come from somewhere inside? You know?
Mm.
Because I think
Mm.
about that. I'm like, they say it's taught. Okay, I can see why you say that now in today's age, because it's been so long. But if we go back, way back, how did it start? Why did it start? Why did the original white people, because it goes back to the first mutation or whatever, and they felt the need to do it. They did it first.
Mm.
Somebody did. It wasn't taught to them by black people to oppress black people. So who started it? You know exactly. You know.
Right. So you're arguing that it could be a nature thing. It could be if I
Yeah,
could
because
quote
you
if
was
I could
even
quote
saying that
what's his name.
earlier about the humane thing, the less humane thing. You know. So yeah.
Right, right. But I mean, but one would also argue that to be humane is also can be taught as well, right? No one's inherently good. I mean, this is an argument that philosophers have all the time, right? The notion of good and evil, right? Like,
Well, I don't think any. Well, I don't think. Well, we gotta talk. Well, okay. So when we're talking about that, when you're talking about morality earlier, how
mhm,
where does that fit in? When you're saying, you know, black people even through history have been more moral than they were, and we didn't do the same things to them. Where does that fit in about nobody's being born this way or inherently? And I don't feel like they were black people anyway were inherently evil either. You think they were inherently evil, neutral, or good? Like where does that fit in with all of that for
so
you?
okay, that's a good question, and I'm glad you asked that question because now you're forcing me to be very clear with what I meant, which is good.
Okay,
When
good.
I said earlier that black people were more moral at the time when they were more militarily strong, what I meant is that black people in general, like their culture, was more
Yeah,
moral.
yeah.
I wasn't talking about the
As a
individuals.
people.
Yeah,
No,
because
as a
because
people.
yeah,
The
it was
individuals make up the people. So if it's a general thing, then that means maybe not every single one, but they're known for that.
right, exactly. They're known for that. But that's a behavior, right? That's a behavior, and behaviors can
Yeah.
be taught and they can be learned, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's true. But I
right.
feel like some behaviors can develop on their own too. I feel that way too.
Oh no, no, absolutely. I do
Yeah,
agree.
so I'm just
But then at the
saying,
same time,
it's all three exist. All three exist, you know. I'm just trying to see what's taught, what's learned, what's naturally there. And I take myself as, but we can talk. Yeah, I want to let you finish though first. Go
oh,
ahead.
okay, perfect. So what I meant was that just as a general, like I was making a huge generalization, right? Like when I
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that black people were being more moral, I was being very general. Of course, there was black people, there were evil black people at the time too, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's evil people, and there were. But the thing is that the majority of the people were
Exceptions
good
though.
to the point where
Exactly. That's all I'm looking at because
yeah, they.
we can talk about that today. That's all I'm talking about too. So
Okay, here's what I'm trying to say is we kept our crazies in check.
yeah, yeah. And
With
it wasn't the majority though. Like
no, it
if it was
wasn't
the
the majority.
majority, then that would be overran. That's what we would be known for if it was the majority.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's why my mind was at when I said that. I didn't say every black person ever is inherently just the same, like good, all good. And although I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of that behavior was Yeah, but when I think, because I always try to look back to the origin and what the first people were doing, and if it was bad behavior, where did that come from, or was it
Hmm.
naturally developed, or was it taught? And
Right.
so, yeah, so I think it's a mix of things because I feel like a lot of things, like I said before, a lot of things Black people weren't doing until it was introduced to us by other people and other cultures, and that's shown through history, you know. And
Yeah.
like I said, into the island. So where's that fitting with what you were saying? Good. Well, I don't know if you finished though. I wanted to let you finish.
Oh no, no, I think we're on the same page, right? What I'm trying to say
Yeah,
is
I
that
think so.
behaviors, be like, okay, let's just be careful
Yeah,
about
yeah,
saying
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I get you. I feel like it's just not one thing. We agree on that, right? It's
Yeah,
not
no,
always just one thing. It could
there's
be
definitely a whole
any.
bunch of
It could.
factors.
Yeah.
There's a
Hmm.
whole bunch of factors. But to say that these people are inherently good, right? Or like black people are inherently good, I don't agree with that statement. I believe
You
that
think that inherently you need neutral?
no, no, no. Well, yeah, I think as human beings that we're all we all have the ability to do evil or good. And
Yeah,
history will
yeah,
show that as well, right? History will show that as well.
yeah,
Black people,
yeah,
there are some black people that have been very evil. There have been
yeah.
white people that have
I
been
agree
very
with
evil.
that.
Right.
I
So,
agree
so
with that. But you said the majority, and that's all I was talking about.
right, the majority. So when you have a majority of people that just happen to make this right choice, then they can keep their crazies at bay, and then they can cultivate a culture, right? Because all of that goodness that they do, it's a learned trait. When people go and live amongst them, they say, "Oh, you know what? I went and I lived amongst the blacks last year, and they do this." When it comes time to like, if they see somebody without food, they just give them food, and then it's kind of a learned culture, right? So it's a learned goodness. When we look
Well,
at when
okay,
I
we can. I think sometimes that's true, but I've been my. Well, I can speak from personal experience, just from myself and how I grew up. I feel like some people, though, what if they were? And this goes to the nature versus nurture thing. I feel like it's both, and some people is one over the other, despite the race. But in some races, it can be one over the other. But what if somebody did grow up where their parents were teaching them, you know, they were bad people basically, you know, and
Mhm.
they taught them to do this and that, but they always were resistance of that, and it wasn't because of any outside influence. Like for some reason, they just opposed their parents' behavior and they didn't want to be what their parents were, even though. And I'm talking about just in isolate, not somebody told them any different, but they
Mhm.
just didn't want to be that. What would you call it? That's not learned. That's just that's. I feel like that's more of a development thing or a nature thing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a decision, right? I think so. Let me just
Yeah.
get this right. Let me get this
So
right. What
so
you're saying?
well, in that sense, then if that's all they've ever known, though, growing up, but they choose to go a different way, and them, then I guess they think they have a moral compass where they feel like that's wrong. I'm not going to do that, even though they don't have any, you know, they just naturally, you know, went that way.
Oh, okay. So that happens. It's just less likely, right? If
Well,
someone,
you say less likely. I don't know, but
well, no, because do we really know anything for certain? Like, do we know something with
yeah.
100%
So we
certainty?
don't know if it's less likely for certain. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Oh, well, okay. Well, like, okay. For instance, if a child is born to a house and both mom and dad are alcoholics, and the brothers and
Yeah,
sisters are alcoholics,
yeah,
and
and nobody's telling them no. This is wrong. They just this is their world. They're homeschooled, everything. So yeah,
right. So now, if nurture is more important than nature, then why is it that the one child says, "I'm just not going to drink," and then you ask
that's
them
what
why,
I'm saying.
and
That's what I was saying. That's their
but
nature. Then they went away from it. That's not just nurture. Like that wasn't a learned behavior because they didn't take it on, so they weren't taught it. That's what I'm
but
saying. That's why I'm going against the top thing.
right, right, right. No,
So I
no,
feel like some people develop to do bad behavior, and some people develop to be do good behavior. I do believe that. I don't think it's taught.
but if
Not
we look at,
always. Not always. I'm just saying I feel like it's a mixture, and it could be a possibility of any of the three. So yeah.
I do agree with you. I trust me, I agree with you. But I'm just
But
saying,
you feel like generally it's more of a taught thing. That's what you think.
but well, I'm asking you in this example, right? If we were to repeat that example 100 times, 100 children born in the exact same exact same environment. How many of them are going to become alcoholics and how many of them are not going to become alcoholics? Just generally.
I couldn't say because what if that kid that probably was the first one to not be an alcoholic and they went off and had kids, but their kids end up being becoming alcoholic too.
Right. It can go either way. But generally, okay, here's the answer that I wanted to hear. Here's the answer that I wanted to hear, right?
Huh?
Um, 8 times out of
It's not
10.
general though. I said, what if,
Right. Okay. But here's the thing. There are
Or
cultures.
what if they broke the cycle and then all the kids and all the generations after that were never alcoholics again? It could be
Okay.
either one.
Let me give you a good example. Let me give you a good example.
You
There's a
trying to
group of
make it fit to.
Let me give you a good example. There's a group of people in Uganda that are known to be the biggest alcoholics in the whole world. There's an entire group of people. They drink hardcore liquor, like they make it from banana and stuff, and they drink it all the time. So now, if we look at that example that I gave you, it just got blown up over there. A society is made up of a bunch of families, right? And so a bunch
Yeah.
of families over there, the majority of them are alcoholics. So the majority of the
Influence.
children grow up in an alcoholic home and it becomes normalized. So that,
If it's forced on them, I feel like because sometimes certain things are forced on you too. Like we also know, like in some hoods and stuff, sometimes kids, even though they might not want to do it, they might be forced into it. Like they older cousin might force them to be in the gang, and that's just where they go. Even though they didn't want to do it, they were made to do it. Like
that's
I
a
don't
form
know
of
if that's
discipline.
what's happening. Like, oh, you gonna drink this now? You this old, so you're gonna drink it. I don't want to drink it. You better drink this, and they force it down their throat. And like, so that could happen too. What if they not naturally like that? What if it's not taught, but it's forced on them? That's another option.
Forced, nurture, I'm hearing the same words. I
No,
mean,
because
because
you said learn. Because learn, I don't think something forced is taught though. It's like a forced behavior. Like you just got. It's kind of like what about like drug addicts, for instance? Like you
Mhm.
do it enough times, and okay, yeah, you get hooked to it, but it's not like you learned it. I feel like there's a different process going on. That's why, from learning to being forced and broken down to it, kind of like the horse. Like that was they were forced into that state of being from their natural state of being wild and free. They got broken down, kind of like with buck breaking, which was the purpose of it. Especially with slaves, they felt with black men that they felt were too rebellious and all that. They would buck break them to and then that would become that behavior, like that would become conditioned. I feel like that's what I'm thinking of, conditioning, by force, not learned, not taught, because teaching isn't by force. I don't think that's by force, but you could, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it's conditioning, not really teaching.
I think it's just a matter of definition, right? If
Yeah,
somebody,
though, that's the whole point, though. You structure, definition, they different words then, right?
no, they're different words, but I mean, the end result is the same, right? Whether you force somebody, whether you force when you're talking about buck breaking, whether you force them or whether you teach them in a nice way, which it doesn't really make sense to teach
Well,
somebody to
that's a
break their
choice,
spirit,
though. Well, that's a
right?
choice, though. If you're teaching somebody, they can choose to learn and to not learn and not to pay attention and not go along with it. That happens
So,
in schools all the time. But if you
so can
force
you,
them, they have no choice.
so can you teach somebody to be in fear of you?
I
Can
feel
you?
like you can. No, I feel like you can force them. I don't know. I ain't really. I gotta think about it. But I feel like because I usually see force being the factor in fear. Like you're forcing them to be in fear of you, but it can be a learned behavior too. So just like bullying, if you're bullying somebody every day and you're just a intimidating person, you're always putting your hands on them, then they eventually that's how they don't stand up for themselves. They naturally become like this, more submissive and in fear of you, and will do what you say because they're in fear of you. But that's not a taught thing. I don't think that's like a taught. For me, I think when think of teaching, that's somebody who's yeah, but I guess we have to also look at what stage in development you're in for that too. Like if you're an adult, if you're adolescent, or if you're like a young child.
Right.
So I guess that would be
Okay.
different. But if you're an adult being taught something, it's not forced to you. So,
Okay. Makes sense. But I mean, everybody has to start off as a child, right? I mean, in the example that I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
giving, that's why I
yeah.
brought
But
the home. That's why I brought the home as a very important part because in the home, the child doesn't know right from wrong yet. All he knows is that mom and dad drink, the neighbors drink, my brothers and sisters drink. They have it at every single meal. Even if it's not being forced down their throat,
what?
it becomes
Hmm.
normal. So then when
But
they
what if
become
they
older,
don't? That still goes against your point, because what if they grow? What if they grow up naturally thinking, no, this is wrong. Everybody's doing it, but it's wrong.
no, no, that's not my point. My point was that it's less likely to happen.
No,
That
that's my
decision.
point. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
get you. Wait, that's you saying that, but I mean, how can we prove that? How can we prove it's less likely to happen though? And
Well,
is that a result of a nature thing? Like by nature, this is just going to happen. These odds they fall into place, and that's why I was talking about the when we're talking about the majority of black people moral and was talking you were saying the majority of them amoral and that's why people even today ask us to do things over them because they know they sense that morality. And so I'm just like, why, what's the difference? Is because the only thing that's difference is the race. So what makes the odds fall in favor and the majority of these people in this place, and for them it's the opposite? What how does that work out for you?
oh, okay, 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 perfect, perfect. The proof that I was saying that it's less likely to happen is that example. When we go to Uganda and you go to that community, if we have a community in that community, most of the people are alcoholics. There are still people that
Oh,
they
there
don't really
are
mess with it. But
in
most of them,
Uganda?
yeah, in Uganda, you can search it out. It's on. There's a YouTube video on it, right? But
Okay. I
but
guess it's like an African Ireland then. I don't know, but
oh no, it's an African country. But what I'm
yeah,
trying to say is
African
that
Ireland, because Ireland is a
oh, okay, okay, I see what you're saying. But most of them are alcoholics, and they're known for it. They're known for it. But there's still a
I
huge
didn't
group of
know that.
people. There's a
I
huge
never
group of
knew
people
that.
there. That's
You
why I use
saying
an
that? I
example.
don't know.
There's a group of people there that are not alcoholics, but they happen to live amongst the people that are known as alcoholics, and therefore they get the whole bad rep. So that right there is proof that it's less likely for it to happen
No,
because those people are born and raised in the same environment, but they say, no, I'm not going to drink. I don't want to drink. It's bad for you. But they're just a small minority. So that's what I'm
no,
saying.
they're
It's less
not.
likely to happen.
Okay, in the whole landmass of Africa, most Africans aren't drunks, alcoholics. So you still, I don't. I feel like we kind of conflating two different things. Though I feel like because we're talking about the morality thing, now we're talking about alcoholism, and then we're talking about the community. We were talking about household, and now we're talking about community within a whole country. A country within a whole continent. And I'm like, well, most black people aren't alcoholics, from what I know. So is that we was talking about black people in general back then and how they how they operated. And so I don't know. I feel like we kind of, I feel like, I feel like something's getting confused for me
Well,
anyway.
I'm seeing that they're all connected, right? Because what I'm saying is when we're going back and we're talking about why certain groups, why white people, for instance, have it seems to be that they're very
Wait, so,
amoral,
wait,
right? It
because
seems to
one
be
is
that they're
about Todd though. So you said Todd, right? You said your position is that it's more often taught, or is it more often by nature? Which one's your stance? Because that's what
oh,
I think I'm confused on that at this point. Because I
okay,
thought
okay,
you were saying most people are taught certain behaviors, but so I don't,
okay.
I'm trying to, yeah,
So we're talking about nature versus nurture, right?
yeah, yeah.
Nature
So
versus nurture. So we're saying that what I'm saying is that the reason why white people seem to be more racist, seem to be less moral, is because their nurture seems to have more of that in it. So whether it's
you
taught to
mean
them,
nature?
like their environment, their environment, their culture seems to
I feel like
breed
that's
hatred
nature
towards other
though.
groups of people. Hmm?
When you said it seems more nurture, which is more like the top thing. I don't see it because we was talking about the it's an exception. You're saying it's an exception for the person to say no to that. And that's not a learned thing to say no to something you grew up all around. That's just by their nature. They don't want to go along with everybody else. So are you seeing that as nurture? That they're saying no to what everybody else is doing, or nature? Because I feel like you said that is nature. He says nurture over nature with on the reason why. So I'm just
Oh
trying to
no,
clarify.
no, not on the reason why. Not on the reason why. I didn't say that. Earlier I said that
Or the source, whatever. Yeah,
when that person made the choice, I made sure to say choice. I
yeah,
made sure to
choice.
say
That's what
choice.
I'm saying. I feel like that choice is nature though, but yeah. So what do you think? I guess you saying what's the reason why? I thought we was talking about nature versus nurture. So why do you think they would say no? I feel like that's against the nurture claim because they would just learn and went along with everybody else.
If we say that when somebody makes a choice, if somebody makes a choice because of their nurture, because of the environment that they're in, are we now saying that if they made a bad choice, if say they made the choice to be evil, does that mean that now it's in their nature to be evil because they made the choice? Or if they say I'm going to be good, is it in their nature now that they're just naturally good? Because now it has to go both ways, right? Because if somebody's
Yeah.
making a choice, then it comes from within them, and that could be for good or bad,
No,
right?
but okay, but we didn't even say we were talking about. Well, there's so many conflations.
Mm.
But yeah, you still didn't answer it though. I don't know. You still didn't answer it. Yeah, okay, let's say it goes both ways. Which one would it be? And I feel like also there's different factors when it goes the other way. I don't know. Possibly, yeah, because even people who were raised in a home where they didn't even drink, some of those people become alcoholics. So, whether it's good or bad, I feel like still that was their choice. They weren't taught it. So, what does nurture mean to you? Because how I define it, that just means that. Sorry, son's call. That just means that they were taught it. It was a learned behavior. It was passed down through teaching. So. So yes, I would say yes. Still go both ways. Still yes. So, but which one are you saying though? I'm just going by definitions. I don't know. You keep giving me different circumstances, though. But
I'm
what's your
trying
what's your stance?
with the different examples I'm giving you. I'm trying to distill like the argument that I'm trying to bring forth. If you want to hear what I'm trying to say in one sentence, I don't believe in nature. I don't believe in nature. Because if we're to say that black people are inherently good, right? Because that's what we're saying,
Well,
but
you
by
said
saying nature.
well earlier. You said black people in general are more moral, are inherently more moral. And
They
if they
behave
were
more
taught
moral.
that, though, why would who? And that goes back to when I was saying the origin thing against the nurture argument. In the beginning, who started that? Why was that a thing that just continuously went on and conceived, even though it was something that wasn't going on before they even existed with black people? So that's why I'm trying to ask those questions. I get so you don't believe in nature at all. So I'm just trying to see in those circumstances, what's the explanation for those?
Well, somebody made a choice, good or bad. They had
Well,
children.
that goes against nurture, though. What's your definition of nurture? Because I'm like, if it's not nurture, then if it doesn't align with the definition of nurture, what do you call it?
What is nurture? Sorry, you're asking
Yep.
two questions.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. What is nature first? And if it doesn't align with that definition, then what do you call it?
Nurture is environment, right? For a lack of a better
Yeah.
term, is environment,
Okay.
and that can include other people, right?
Hmm.
Because we're trying to get to the root of it. Like, where did this come from? Like, where did they learn this behavior to treat black people a certain way, right? Like, where did they
Yeah.
get that
Well,
from?
yeah. And I didn't even say good or bad. You said morality earlier on your own, but we was talking about racism and the things they did versus the things we did naturally, how the developments happened, how they ended up doing totally different things that we haven't done the whole time we were here, tens and thousands of years before they even existed. Why didn't we go about that the same way if it was all co-equal? That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're saying that. And that's why I say nature. That's why I'm saying I see it as a mix of both. But you don't believe in nature at all. So I'm trying to, just get an understanding. How you would explain it, because we don't have to disagree. But I love that we're having a conversation.
All right, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say that somewhere along the line, right, somebody made a good choice, Somebody made,
Hmm.
because when we're talking about morals, all I meant was just good and bad, right?
Yeah, okay, so you
That's
started the
all I
good and
meant.
bad thing, not me. But
Yeah, no, that was
I
me. That
said,
was me, 100%,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I was saying a good thing and a bad thing, right? Um, and that's just morality. So when we're saying that, when I'm saying that black people did, they didn't do these bad things. They seem to have a better moral compass in the ancient world and even now. I'm saying that that's not a nature. That's not a nature trait
What
because I
is
don't.
it? That's what I'm trying to see. And what is your definition of nurture? Because you didn't. I'm sorry, I'm trying not to ask more than one question, but I was trying to see what your definition of nurture was. And I guess you're saying it's not. It's a choice. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
It's, my definition of nurture is environment, right?
Yeah,
Is
environment. Yeah,
environment,
you said that. Yeah, yeah.
right? And environment will include the environment that you were raised in, the culture that you live in. All of that's environment because we're talking about this to the individual, right? So to the
Mhm.
individual, his environment shapes a lot of things, right? Of
Yeah,
course, the
yeah.
individual can still make a choice, but the environment weighs heavily on that choice. He can still choose the opposite, but the environment will play a huge factor in his choice. And I
I
use the
guess
word,
my. Sorry before I forget. I just wanted to say real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, it's okay.
I guess my thing is what causes that choice? What's the source of that choice? And I feel like that's where I'm coming from it. But and we disagree on it. But I'm going because you're saying, oh, if they don't go along with their environment, which would kind of go against the nature thing, because you said environment. If there's an exception, then that's a choice. But yeah, I feel like those are exceptions to what's the general. It could be a bunch of things. I was just thinking like because I heard what you said and I was thinking about okay, it goes both ways. And
Mm.
I guess I would theorize well if there's an exceptions to the general nature of that people, and so those are the ones who do that go astray. But I don't think. But again, we was talking about majority. So yeah, go ahead though. Yeah, what do you think about what I just said?
I think I think we're saying the same thing, but I also think you're asking a very philosophical question when you ask about because when you're asking if somebody makes that choice that's against their environment or their nurture, where does that
Mhm.
come from? That must be from their nature, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, I said actually I kind of went the opposite way and I'm theorizing it. I'm saying what if they make a different in my circle in my example, we're talking about people who have done things and by nature, right? Just from my standpoint. With yours it was just they're all just nurtured that and then somebody made a different choice. But mine I'm saying what if that's all their nature and then when people make a different choice, the exceptions to that, they make a different choice and go outside of their environment or go against their environment, then they have exceptional nature to the people that they're part of. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay, okay. I see what you're saying. So people will
Yeah.
say that word, right? People will say he has exceptional, like you said, exceptional nature. Like this guy,
And
he
when
just
I
is
say
exceptional.
exceptional, I mean just not the same, not going along with everybody else in the group, like not the same as everybody else in the group, like in
Right.
nature, basically. Because my environment, my argument is for nature. So yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah,
I noticed, I
yeah,
noticed.
yeah.
That's why we're
Yeah,
going back.
yeah.
But
Although I believe in both, but you don't believe in, you only believe in one. I believe in both, though. I believe things are taught, learned, there are learned behaviors, and I feel like there are nature like behaviors. That's why I feel like when people grow up in a certain environment and they go the other way, I feel like it's more about nature, but that's just me.
mm, okay.
Mm.
Um, what I'm trying to say is that when that happens, in that case, that person's just the odd one out. You know, if there's
Exactly. Well, that's the same thing. Yeah. So they're the odd one out from the nature of their people. That's what I'm saying.
from the nurture of their people, the
No, from
nurture
the
of their
nature.
people,
See, exactly. See,
the
that's
nurture.
why we
I would say
disagree.
from the nurture of their
I say
people,
the
and you would
nature.
say, I would say from the nurture of their people, and then you would say from the nature of their people.
Yeah,
Right, right.
because yeah. Because I'm like, for it to be against the nature of the people, where did they get the nature to go away from where it is? And you said, like you said, nurture is environment. So if it's away from the nurture, that still goes back to the point of what is it if it's not along with nurture because they didn't take on that nurture. They didn't. Their nature didn't become their environment, so they weren't nurtured. So what else is it? I feel like that's, so, I don't know how we disagree on that, but I feel like that hasn't been explained yet.
Another word for environment, culture,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
I,
when
yeah,
somebody,
I mean, it's some difference. It's a differences there, I feel like, but yeah.
okay, but why wouldn't it be? If I live in a certain culture that's made up of people and is made up in their behaviors, why wouldn't the culture now be part of my environment? Why wouldn't it be part of my nurture? My nurture, I should say.
Exactly. That's why I said I feel like they're the odd ones out. They have exceptional nature. Their nature is just different than the other ones, and they're exceptions because that's not the general rule. That's what I'm saying. But like I said, I believe in both of them. So, and sometimes people, and I have an example for mine when some people are nurtured away from their nature, when they go out, but they probably know this one friend, and they one friend is always telling them, against them, teaching them different things, and so they choose to go a different way, and that would be nurturing them away from the nature of the community, their environment. But I still haven't heard you say like an example of them going if it's only nurture, and they go away from their nurture. What is the cause of that? If it's not nature, it's not nurture because they haven't been nurtured anywhere else. What if they're still in that isolated instance? Why do they choose to go away from it? That's my question, to try to get deeper into, your stance.
Oh, okay. I would say that it's the right thing to do.
But is it always the right thing to do? Because just because you're going away from it doesn't mean that's just like, it feels like one or two of the exceptional people who probably were against certain inhumane things going on during slavery, you know,
Hmm.
or if they were all doing like the evil black people in history, like you said, the exception, the ones that we kept in check, and they just went against everything else that was going on. Then were they in the right for being evil, for doing things? They're the first serial killer in the village. Like, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's good and bad way to go away from the community, whether it's the environment or the nature of the people.
Okay.
Because you
I
said
do.
it's just the right thing to do. That's why, but not always. Sometimes people go away from what everybody else is doing to do the wrong thing.
I meant in the specific example. So when we're talking about white people hating
Oh, I
black
didn't say
people,
you an example. That I was just talking about, when they go away from the. I wasn't even thinking about it when I was talking about when a person, because you said Uganda and different things. I was just thinking about, general. I was talking about alcoholism and different things, but I was like, in a general sense, though, what causes them, whether it's to do a bad thing or a good thing, what causes them to go out of their environment if it's not nature? If it's not nature, yeah.
okay, okay. See, now this is what I'm saying. You're asking a very philosophical question. This is a
Well,
very
I feel like I'm just breaking down your stance, though, to ask it, to get deeper into it, though, to get a full understanding of, that stance, or to challenge it.
right, right, right. But you're
Yeah.
actually asking a philosophical question. You're asking a
Okay.
question as to
Yeah.
the goodness. What
Yeah.
makes people choose goodness? I can't tell you. I
I
don't
didn't say
know.
that though. I didn't say that. I said because you said everybody nurture, but I was saying for that makes sense. Why would the one person, the exception of that, go away from their environment if it's not, and they don't have anybody else nurturing them to go out of their environment to break apart and be the first one to do this? Then where does that come from? Whether it's good or evil? Like if they're in a good community, people who never killed anybody, educated and all that, but they have a friend that they whisper in their ear and nurture them to do horrible things or to start killing or
Mhm.
whatever, and they choose to go out of that and change and become the first serial killer of their community. There's some nurture. That was something that was nurtured out of them. I'm saying the opposite. Well, since you only believe in nurture, I'm like, in that isolated incidents, when that's all they're around and there's no outside influences, what makes them break away from that if it's not for that to for only nature to be, the thing. Well, if nature is the only option, how does that make sense? That's all I'm trying to say.
Nurture is a huge part. I'm not saying that nurture is the sole determining factor. I'm
You
saying that it
said that
plays
was
a
the only
very
thing, though. I thought, well, okay, you didn't say that, but I thought because we're talking about nature and nurture. I believe in both. I feel like nature is a factor in it too, but what's the other factors for you? If
well,
not
okay.
nature is one of them.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that
But we
nurture,
shouldn't get too much deeper in it. Too much, because we can't do this that long. But yeah, five. Let's do it for like 5 or 10 more minutes. Yeah.
okay, okay. So with nurture, what I'm trying to say is that nurture plays a huge role. Of course, people still have the role of choice. Choice is huge. But I'm saying that choice is not nature. Because if you're saying that it's nature, then you also have to explain the people that choose the wrong thing. And then if that
Yeah.
person chooses the wrong thing, are you saying it's their nature to be wrong? So
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
if we
But
have
how do you disprove that? Really, I just trying to say. That's what I'm saying because we're talking about racism, and if that was an environmental thing, that I can't see that being possible for white people to come from an environment because it has to start somewhere. There's a starting point. It's not like, okay, the family, the father, learn from his father to from his father. There's not an endless amount of lineages. There was the first person to do this, and how did that become the environment? How did this mindset of racism become the environment for them if it's a nurture thing? Because that would have had to be in the environment in the origin of it. That's what I'm saying, and that's why I don't agree that it's just nurture. Because I'm like, who taught it to them first then? And that's why I said earlier too, originally. So I'm just trying to break it down. Like I'm open to being wrong, but I'm just digging into it, and that's why I think that you know
there are white people that are against treating black people badly.
exactly. Yeah,
And
exactly. I didn't
and
say
and
every
there
last one. We said exceptions and stuff like that too. You
okay,
said that back then.
okay. So now
What did I say?
if that white person chooses to not treat black people a certain way, even though the rest of their group of people says, no, we're going to treat these people like this. And that white person says, no, not going to do it. They're going against their nurture. They're going against their culture. They're going against their environment. Now, are
But
we going
see,
to say that?
you kind of pivoting though. I said
No. Hold on,
in the
hold on.
origin though, you can't answer that one. That's what I'm saying. If it's what was the original environment for the first white people to have that? Then, if because there's no way black people nurtured them to oh we do this. So and it's essentially because of the conception and how it came about, whatever. But that's what I'm saying. Can you? Because I'm not even talking about white people right now. I'm just talking about nature versus nurture as in just the philosophical terms and people.
Right.
That's all I'm discussing.
So
So I'm trying to see how because you're using that, but I'm like that doesn't disprove like the larger general um the conversation I'm trying to have.
okay, I'm talking about, okay, so you're basically saying
How did
without
how did it
nurture.
origin how did they originate if it's nurture then? That's what I'm saying because it's not taught because it's the first person. That's what I'm trying to see. How's that work out for you and being the environment?
Let's go to Genesis. Let's go to Adam and Eve and the tree. Because there was no
Well, first
environment.
off, they weren't black. They weren't white. So I mean, they
Okay,
say they are
okay.
now, but the first black people, that was the first black people.
Okay, but just give me 1 second here. What I'm trying to say is that if we go back, the only way you can go back to where nurture is not an environment, is not a thing, is you're basically asking why did Adam and Eve choose to eat the apple? They didn't have an environment of nurture that told
Yeah,
them,
they
hey
did.
man, well,
Yeah, they
what the snake?
did. The
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 snake?
snake did. The
The snake?
snake, yeah, the snake nurtured
Okay,
them to do it. They had
but,
to.
but,
They had to. He nurtured them away from their nature. Yeah, because they weren't interested in doing it, but prior. So yeah,
But
that
God, but
goes to
God
that what
nurtured
I
them.
said.
But God nurtured them against what the snake was saying before the snake was there.
No, he just made them that way. That's what I'm saying.
No.
See,
He told them.
my argument is nature. So that's what I'm
Okay,
saying. That
but
they
God
would
told
they would
them
did
not
on
to
their
eat it.
own.
But God told them not to eat it
Yeah,
before the snake
but they
came
were
there.
nature. That's just like God was, Luke saying in the garden, God was basically their environment because he told them and they didn't have any desire to do it. And that's just like when I said, if they had a friend, okay, that whispered them the two terrible things and he became the first serial killer in his village or his community, he was natured away from his nurture. That still applies. So you still can't disprove what I'm saying by saying that because the snake that was the outside influence that nurtured them away from their
But
nature.
but God was also an outside force too. He was telling them not to eat it, and then the snake
Well,
was telling them to eat it.
technically not. Like technically not. If we gonna go all the way there and break it down, it said he made them. He breathed some of his life force into them. So how they not? It's yeah.
But if that was their nature, then why didn't they not eat the apple? Why did they not eat it?
They were nurtured away from. I said I believe in both. I said they were nurtured away from their nature. That's still my answer's still the same. You
But
can't
nurture,
disprove it.
but if nurture overpowers nature, then nature loses its power.
I didn't say that, and I didn't say the whole thing, but it depends. That's why we say exceptions and stuff like that. How far did it overpower them? We're going into a different conversation. I still feel like for that behavior, that was just one thing. First off, for that behavior, he told them to do a lot of things. He didn't convince them to change the whole thing who they are. He just convinced them to eat an apple. So. And really, if that's an instruction, then how are we gonna say, okay, eating an apple is in your nature or your nurture? I don't think that's a good example. But
Oh, it's a perfect example because if
no, it's
we're
not.
asking,
You
if
trying
we
to?
it's the perfect
It's really
example of
not.
nature versus nurture. Because if Adam and Eve chose not to eat the apple, then you would say it's because it's in their nature. But
No,
I'm
it's
saying,
a day. No.
but I'm saying that their nature is their nature is they have the ability to choose wrong and right.
But who
That's where I
says
would
it's
say.
wrong or right? He just told them like that's not. We can say that, first of all, their nature is to eat. That's why I feel like this is a bad example because their nature is to eat. He made
Yeah,
an
exactly.
exception out of all the fruits, and so it's just like, okay, I'm telling you, since your nature is to eat food and to eat, I told you to eat the fruit, and you get hungry. That's your anatomy. I'm just telling you not to eat that one. That's totally different. That's like an instruction. He's trying to nurture them by telling them not to do it and that's nurturing them from their environment, from their nature to not eat the fruit. So yeah.
Well,
But see,
I agree
they
with
would
you.
naturally just without God giving them any instruction, they'll just naturally eat all the fruit. So yeah, that's still
Exactly,
nature. See,
exactly.
so and that still goes against you though because it's in our human nature to eat. So and
I
we
agree.
haven't always eaten meat either. So
I agree
okay,
with
we
that.
just
I
not.
agree.
We'll got like I said. I just wanted to discuss both of our points of views.
Yeah.
This isn't a road to. One got to end off agreeing or disagreeing. But
Right,
I
right,
think this
right.
was a fun discussion, though. You still couldn't get me, though. You still couldn't trip me up. I don't see.
No, no, I'm not. I'm
But
not
I think
trying to
it's
trip
fun.
you up.
Yeah, you are. You,
I'm not trying to
you
trip you
are.
up at all. I'm not. I'm not. I'm actually just trying to show you why
But you
nature.
see how nature is a thing because it's nature to eat. You saying it's not nature to eat?
No, 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 no,
A baby would crawl around and eat stuff on its
no, no,
own
no,
without
no,
its
no, 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 no,
mother.
no, no, no.
See, so
I,
human nature does exist. Okay.
human nature is no. That's not.
Yes, we
That's
will. Yes, it is.
anatomy. That's anatomy. When we're talking about human
Mm-mm.
nature,
No.
it's human nature to get thirsty, it's human nature to eat, it's human nature to defecate, it's human
Yeah.
nature to do all that
Yeah, it
stuff,
goes
right?
beyond. That's a behavior, though. Eating
Is
is
it
a behavior, so that goes to it. No, but we gotta get it out here,
it's
though.
the behavior that keeps you
Yeah,
alive, bro.
yeah. And what you eat also it depends because from what I saw that a lot of Africans they have more of a vegan diet, and I didn't know that. Um, and that the Europeans and stuff, they were ones that were eating all the meat and all that, and all different kinds of things. But I don't know. That's just from my research that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen that research. Have you? That the original African diet was fruits and vegetables and stuff, and they didn't really eat like meat, like especially like pork and stuff. The original African diet. Did you hear that before? Did you see that anywhere?
Oh, there's still groups of people that still live like that to this day.
Oh, okay. So what you eat also is a part of the human nature. It's not just you just going around eating everything and anything. But anyway, so that just goes to my point again. I'm just saying. But we don't have to agree on it. You know, you make good points. Did you see any points I made that were good?
Well, no, I mean, what you eat is not your nature. The nature that you have to eat, that's
Okay,
your nature. But what you eat is not your
no,
nature.
what you
Because you could,
choose to eat. They were
what
all
you choose
fruit
to eat,
though.
that's
It's
not in your
the
nature either.
animals. They
You can
all
eat,
eat fruit. Why wouldn't they eat
not all of
animals
them.
if it wasn't in
Not
their
all of them.
nature?
We can't make sweeping
Okay, that's
generalizations like that.
debatable.
Because we
That's
didn't eat all
debatable.
of them. There's
But you said
there's people
hmm,
that eat meat, right? There's Africans that eat meat, like tons of them.
now. Yeah, now we talking about back then, and that's what I saw that originally they only ate vegetables and fruits back then originally, before that was even introduced, and that they and actually we even see that all through mythology because they had a high respect for animals and stuff, and they actually personified them to be gods and deities. So they weren't going around, even the Egyptians, they weren't just going around, they weren't eating cats. They had a high regard for cats. But that's all over African mythology. They actually, have a high respect for animals and then eat them. So, that's why I was talking about, and that goes with the nature thing too. But yeah, I do have to get going. But this was a good conversation. I wonder how long it was, like 2 hours, an hour and a half. But
I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Is there a way to find out? Let me see.
no, I
Oh,
don't. I only know by time.
I think it'll
Well,
say it
why
at the
you
end of the
disagree? You still
conversation.
can. Hmm.
I think it'll say it at the end when we exit. Then it'll probably say how long we've been
I
talking.
just hope when I press the X, it don't just say okay. And I hope it gives me the option to save this because I really want to save it. Last time it did give me the option to save it, so I just don't want to make any mistakes.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't go on live that often, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, me
Like,
either. But
I don't know.
yeah. But
But
yeah, I
yeah,
hope we both took something or a different perspective, even though that's not even what we came. Well, actually, it was all tied in.
it's
I feel
all
like
tied
it was
together.
all tied in because we we
Yeah.
we took that thing that you originally, said about morality and who is more moral even to this day.
Hmm.
And then we just went upon that, and I guess we're talking about the reason why. Was
Yes.
it nature or nurture? And
And then that's
I
where we
didn't
kind of
convince you.
said,
You didn't convince me, but we both saw different perspectives. I had you gave something to think about, so I'll think about that. Although
likewise,
I feel
likewise.
like that, huh?
I said likewise.
Yeah, good, good. Hopefully, other people, whoever watches this, get something in a different perspective too. Just to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully the original message. Hopefully we get people to especially black people to unify and to do action as well as having a conversation if they still want to have it, because some people feel like we've been talking for centuries about this. If you still don't get it, you'll never get it. I'm kind of in that camp. But yeah, so
Hmm.
and if you wanted to dissipate your own ignorance, you would do the work to do that. Why it's not on me to do that, but
Mm.
we can discuss that later on, though. That's a whole nother conversation we could
That's a different
discuss,
topic.
Yeah.
100%.
I was just gonna say, or it could be nature versus nature on why that's not happening. But I don't want to talk about that. Well, I feel like we don't wear that conversation out. But
Exactly,
okay, I'll talk.
exactly.
I'll talk to you later. We got a plan to do something else soon, and
Okay,
maybe
okay.
we can do like a Zoom call where it's a whole. I want to do it where it's more than two people eventually. Like I texted you, like I want to do that, eventually, like maybe it's a Zoom call and it's recorded and it's like 3 or 4 or 5 people. So we can all have like a discussion that way, that's more than one.
I like
So
that. I like
I'll
that
hit
idea.
some people up, because I feel like this is a way of unifying black people by sharing our diverse opinions, possibly changing them if we see a new perspective that makes us think differently, you
Hmm.
know, anything that's for the betterment of the people. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, you have to open
But
up the
yeah, so
channels
I'm
of
gonna try to hit
communication.
some, huh?
You said you have to open up the channels of communication. You have to have open dialogue first. If you don't
Yeah,
have
cause
open
yeah,
dialogue, then we can kiss all the change that we want goodbye. If we can't sit down and talk about things that are hard to talk
yeah,
about, then there's no point. We can't even say, oh, we're brothers and sisters. If I can't even hear what you're saying and you can't hear what I'm saying, then why are we going to call ourselves
yeah,
brothers and sisters? We have to have a place where we can talk openly, freely, and on the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
page, right?
really,
So this is good,
really.
regardless.
Yeah, and I feel like that also undoes the brainwashing too. That because sometimes we be thinking things and we don't even know why we think them. And if we're in a
Exactly.
conversation, we can actually break that down. And you know, if you can explain why you think something, then you know, then that's because you probably was brainwashed into thinking it. You know, I'm
Exactly.
talking about things that's against, you know, that's to their detriment that they think is the right thing. You know, that was
Right.
a learned behavior. So yeah.
I
So
hear you.
well, I don't know. That's an interesting thing too. Brainwashing is a learned behavior or forced behavior, but I'll think about that later. Conditioning, I think it's definitely conditioning. So it's probably forced, but it's
Hmm.
just unwittingly forced. It's not like you're willingly trying to learn this, but that can be taught too. Normally, like you said, taught. I
Hmm.
believe that. I believe in all of those factors. You only believe in. You just don't believe in nature, but yeah. So So yes, I'll definitely hit some people up and we'll try to organize something. Maybe the Google thing, the Google Talk thing. You know, I know one friend, we have conversation all the time. I'd be like, if we could record these phone calls, that would be great because he live in Atlanta, a different city. And I was
Oh,
like,
okay.
because we go in depth about things, and he brings a different perspective, and sometimes we disagree. And even though, and we'll break it down just like this, and we still won't end up agreeing sometimes. So I
Hmm.
feel like that's still a good thing though. But I feel like the more the merrier, but not too much, because then you know, then it's just it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, it gets
I
hard
hope
to hear
yeah,
each other. It gets even
depends,
harder
yeah.
to hear
So
each
we gotta
other.
have some kind of order to it. But yeah.
Hmm.
But all right, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion.
Oh, the pleasure was mine, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right,
Okay,
brother.
everybody. I'll see y'all later.
All right,
See.
take care.